the Alliance for Eye and Vision Research in partnership with the Tear Film and Ocular Surface Society. And today's briefing is on ocular surface disease and researching the impact of cosmetics on eye health. Just a little background on the Alliance for Eye and Vision Research. I'll let my colleagues and partners at TFOS share a little bit of information about TFOS. But the Alliance for Eye and Vision Research is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that focuses on educating and raising awareness about the value of vision research, the reason that we need vision science, and trying to advance care continuums for patients to try to make sure that people have the best outcomes in care. Our mission is to make sure that we educate and raise awareness about that and try to help people understand why we need to continue to invest in vision science. These are some of our members. We represent over 55 organizations across the country, including eye institutes, industry partners, nonprofits, foundations, and associations. And we're here today because July is Dry Eye Awareness Month, and the Tear Film and Ocular Surface Society is one of our partners in trying to raise awareness about dry eye disease and some of the challenges associated with people experiencing dry eye disease and living with dry eye disease. We want to try and focus on prevention and treatment in the future to make sure that we reduce the incidence and severity of dry eye disease. So thank you to TFOS for being here. Also special thanks to some of our sponsors and grant providers that help make events like today possible. The Research to Prevent Blindness, ARVO, the Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology, Alcon, Allergan, Genentech, Jensen, and J&J Vision are all supporters of this event. I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues here now to go over our presentation.
Thank you. No, we don't need to connect to Wi-Fi. Yes, we need to do this. So, for those of you in the back rows, thank you for coming today. And it's the quality, not the quantity. So thank you. This is a little preface. What I'd like to do just briefly is to thank the panelists who are here, Kathy Hammett, Vice President of the Medical and Scientific Affairs at the Chauvins Foundation, Brigitte Chandelier, the CEO and co-founder of Vision Optique in Houston, Shane Swatz, Eastern Virginia Eye Associates owner and founder, with his wife, Amy Sullivan, coming in from Paris, Executive Director of TFOS, as well as the founder and CEO of SU Labs, and myself, and 8 years at Harvard, and chair of the board of directors of TFOS. So, what is TFOS? Briefly. The whole mission of TFOS is to advance the research, literacy, and educational aspects of the scientific field of the tear film and ocular surface. It's a global organization. Through our ambassador program, we probably reach out to over 1 million eye care practitioners and researchers throughout the world. Imagination is the key to our vision, and we like to make things happen. What is dry eye disease? Essentially, it's what happens when your tear film becomes concentrated for a variety of reasons. You don't have enough liquid going in or enough oil to prevent the evaporation. That triggers sensors in the cornea, inducing the feeling of pain. It also causes instability of the tear film. And the combined effects, particularly the concentrated tear film, induces inflammation on the ocular surface. And it changes the nerve anatomy and function on the front of the eye. It used to be thought that the lack of a gland and not enough water was the main cause. Today we know that the meibomian gland and the lids are the main reason for dry eye disease. It's just to think of it as the oil. There's insufficient amounts. So I'm going to be talking about meibomian glands a little bit more as we go forward. It affects over 40 million people in the United States. It's the leading cause of patient visits to eye care practitioners, and it has no cure. And the impact of dry eye disease on a person through its detrimental effect on vision, quality of life, work productivity, as well as the psychological and physical impact of pain is considerable. 10 years ago, a report noted that the overall burden on the U.S. society because of lost work productivity exceeded $55 billion. So now, fast forward, the preface is over. We're going to talk about what is this? The lifestyle epidemic, ocular surface disease. This major report focuses on the direct and indirect impacts of everyday lifestyle choices and challenges that have on our eye, from screen time to our beauty routines to nutrition to where we live. Involved almost 3 years of effort from 158 participants from 38 countries. There are a number of different subcommittees focusing on what we do to ourselves in the eye, from contact lenses or watching screens, or where we live, or how we are in terms of lifestyle, for example, stress, depression, nutrition, what we eat, the society that we live in, and then we have supporting subcommittees. The one I'm going to talk about today, though, is cosmetics. Most people don't think about this usually in terms of eye problems or eye health. It usually makes you alluring, but it doesn't cause disease, but actually it can. There were a number of people on our subcommittee, and there are people that contributed a lot, so that we acknowledge them. So this report on cosmetics that was recently published in the Ocular Surface explains how the use of eye cosmetic products and procedures represents a lifestyle challenge, which may exacerbate or promote the development of dry eye disease, for example, and other ocular surface diseases. So what are cosmetics? The answer depends on where we live. Cosmetics are defined differently in different countries and regions around the world, and there's no global consensus on the definition of cosmetics. For those who use them, there are many different types, many different areas of the eye that you use them, and use them frequently, oftentimes more than once a day. In addition, there are numerous cosmetic procedures for the eye, whether it be Botox, filler, tattooing, eyelash curling, dyeing, tinting, and perming, piercing of the eyelids, microneedling, etc. All of these procedures may also be associated with adverse ocular surface effects, including dry eye disease. And I keep saying dry eye disease because it's dry eye disease awareness. So a little bit of history. Since before the age of antiquity, people have used makeup to speak with the eyes. The primary goal was to darken the eyes, make them more expressive, attractive, and seductive, and enhance the appearance of youth and beauty. Fast forward to the 21st century, which ushered in a thriving global eye makeup industry. It's currently valued at almost $16 billion and projected to exceed $23 billion by 2028. Now, there are a number of different kinds of ingredients that have various functions within cosmetics, all shown here. They all are included in products such as around eye creams, eyeliners, eyeshadows, eyelash glues, lotions, makeup primers, removers, mascaras, moisturizers, serums, and wet wipes. A number of the ingredients that I just noted may act as allergens, carcinogens, endocrine disruptors, immunosuppressants, irritants, mutagens, toxins, and or tumor promoters, and may damage the ocular surface and induce dry eye disease or exacerbate it. Further, multiple adverse reactions may occur following the application of the product containing these ingredients. I'm going to talk about a few. Here are some of the top 10 that you should really avoid in cosmetics. These are some of the ingredients that I'm going to discuss. Benzalkonium chloride. Amounts that are 20,000-fold lower than approved for commercial use in eye makeup, we know are toxic to human meibomian gland epithelial cells, as well as corneal epithelial, conjunctival epithelial cells. Remember, the meibomian gland is the most important gland in preventing dry eye disease. And benzalkonium chloride can induce dry eye disease, among many other things. We have the formaldehyde-releasing compounds. Why would you put formaldehyde on your eye? Well, its preservatives break down and create formaldehyde in levels that are 2,000-fold lower than the European Union limits for using in cosmetics are toxic to these meibomian gland epithelial cells. It's also been classified as a cancer-inducing agent. We have parabens. Parabens are preservatives that are included in over 22,000 cosmetic products in the US. They are toxic to the human ocular surface and meibomian gland cells. They're also endocrine disruptors. Talk about that again in a moment. We have the phthalates, which are used as solvents in cosmetic makeup. They can damage the cornea severely, and they're banned, most of them in Europe, but not in the United States. We have vitamin A. Vitamin A we usually think of as good to eat. But there are a lot of metabolites from vitamin A, and these are put in things like retinol creams. Just smear them in eyeliners or mascaras, and this is really dangerous because the retinoic acids destroy and kill your meibomian gland epithelial cells, and they are very well known to induce meibomian gland dysfunction and evaporative dry eye disease. We also have salicylic acid. It's in a number of different products. It's what's in aspirin. This can cause chemical burns. You should not put this near your eye at all, but it's in cosmetics. We have the prostaglandin analogs. These are sold over the counter to make your eyelashes grow longer. These are dangerous and may also induce meibomian gland dysfunction and dry eye disease. We have castor oil, which is hitting the market quite often now because it's going to help promote growth or grow your eyelashes. In fact, there's no evidence that it can grow your eyelashes, and further, it may damage your ocular surface. Then we have tea tree oil. Tea tree oil is really being marketed really high, and it's used medically to get rid of little bugs in your eyelids. And the American Academy of Ophthalmology says use 50% scrubs and 5% massages every day to get those little bugs away. But the bugs don't really cause anything related to dry eye disease because there's no evidence for that. However, we do know that putting it in cosmetics is not good because cosmetics are used many times a day, every week, every month, every year. And tea tree oil is dangerous. We know that just 1% tea tree oil will kill all those cells that I just talked about on the ocular surface from humans in 90 minutes. We know that they're endocrine disruptors. They have estrogen activity that can promote meibomian gland dysfunction and dry eye. They have anti-androgen activity, which we know promotes meibomian gland dysfunction and dry eye disease. We know that tea tree oil, Ken Korak, who is the president of the Endocrine Society, published a report how using it on your skin can induce breast development in young boys. You don't want this. It shouldn't be used day in, day out, but there's no guideline and there's no regulation on its use. There are many different products that we cover in this report. We cover a number of procedures. Some of the eyelash extensions, for example. Eyelash extensions distort the airflow of your eye, can promote evaporation of your tear film. And if you have to have any ocular procedures like surgery, they can catch fire. We have a number of other procedures that we address in the report. We also go over in detail about the world in terms of cosmetic regulations and safety. But under US law, cosmetic products and ingredients other than color additives do not need FDA approval before they go on the market. And further, on the new Cosmetics Regulation Act of 2022, neither the law nor FDA regulations require any tests to demonstrate the safety of individual products or ingredients. So overall, the use of eye cosmetics represents a lifestyle challenge. Eye cosmetic products and our procedures may be associated with multiple adverse effects, and they may cause harm or exacerbate and promote the development of diseases such as dry eye disease. So some of the recommendations that we have, many of them, a couple in the report, and we're going to talk more with the panel about this, but we really need to educate ocular practitioners and consumers about the medical risks associated with these products, and we need far more research to determine the acute and chronic effects of these ingredients and the procedures on our eyes. So we've come a long way in terms of understanding, but we still have a far longer journey to go to understand what these things do to our eye and our vision. I'd like to thank all the sponsors and to thank you for listening. And so now we're going to go ask the panel to come up and ask a series of questions. All right, so thanks. So thanks again. The first question is to Kathy Hammond. Kathy, would you please explain to us what it's like to live with dry eyes?
All right, I will. Thank you, David. And first I want to say that there can be multiple causes of dry eye. The cause of my dry eye is Sjogren's disease, which is the second most common autoimmune rheumatic disease. And the most recent Harris poll survey that we did, whereas Sjogren's can affect any body organ or system, the number one symptom that came out of that poll was dry eye. So think for a minute what it's like to live with your eyes feeling like they are gritty. Imagine if you were walking on a beach and it blows sand in your eyes. Well, that's what like all the time, every day. Like we've got the sand in there. Painful, it hurts. And my eyes hurt all the time. So other symptoms are that they burn, they're irritated, sometimes they itch, they feel gummy. So imagine your eyes being gummy all day and trying to focus on work and trying to focus on reading a book or focus on your, work that you're doing on the computer or on the TV or, a child or a grandchild in an event and you're trying to watch them in a play or something. And the gumminess at night is even worse because they're not getting the moisture replenished. So I wake up in the morning with my eyelids glued to my eyeballs, which is not a pleasant feeling at all. It's horrible when you have to kind of peel that off. We're sensitive to light, sensitive to wind. So in the summertime, I get into a really hot car, and what I want to do is roll down the window so that I can. And if I do that, the wind is blowing in, and that makes the dry eye much worse. Thank you.
So Kathy, then, how does the use and choice of cosmetics add to the challenges you already face with dry eye?
Well, your report is really scary, David, because with Sjogren's, I also have dry skin, so I'm often using moisturizers on my face. And all of that does, I was aware that it got in my eyes because it always eventually makes my eyes burn. I have gotten away from cosmetics, or at least from makeup, because it hurts my eyes all the time. And now I see, too, that if it causes even more damage, when I already struggle with the dry eye, the last thing I want to do is cause more damage. And I mean, for healthy people, I have a 13-year-old granddaughter who's experimenting and having fun with makeup. And after reading this report, I thought I need to make sure she's using makeup that is safe for her. I also just want to bring up that last weekend I took my grandson to the movie The Little Mermaid, which was really good, by the way. And they opened with a quote from Hans Christian Andersen that said, "Mermaids can't cry. And this is why, I'm trying to remember the exact words, but this is why they suffer so much." And so those with dry eye can't cry either, which is a very human thing. It also helps clear the eyes of those toxins and other things that you're talking about. It's being hit with a double whammy, so we don't want to do anything that further damages things. But I'm so grateful to the Tear Film Ocular Society for developing this report, because we're starting to raise awareness about this, and it's just so critical for us, and it's something else that we as dry eye patients have got to learn to manage.
To follow up on your comments then for the panel, does skin safe necessarily mean eye safe? Any word of Brigitte, Jane?
So there's a lot of terminology that you guys see in the over-the-counter product. Unfortunately, those labels are not regulated by our FDA. Anyone could put words natural, skin safe, organic, kind of labeling on the product. So just because you see something skin safe, it does not mean that they are safe for your ocular surface, especially anything you put around your eyelids. So no, they do not, unfortunately.
And also, what's good for your skin may not necessarily be good for your eyes. So, for example, if a dermatologist prescribes, say, retinols for anti-aging, it's not something that is recommended as per this presentation and report that you should put anywhere near your eyes. So just because it's skin safe doesn't mean it's eye safe.
Correct. And also, Dr. Lee mentioned natural products. That also are the products that are labeled as ophthalmology tested or ophthalmology approved, dermatology approved. That really doesn't hold a lot of weight. It's not regulated. And it really takes one dermatologist saying, I approve of this, for them to put that label on there.
Okay, thank you. Also, I should note that there's an app, or there's a site online called Skin Safe. It's Mayo Clinic out of Arizona. But although it reports on products and ingredients that are good for the skin based on allergy, the number of the products in there that were brought to their attention and they're going to try to correct are not necessarily good for the eyes, because they contain a number of the ingredients, even on our top 10 banned list, that they don't pay attention to because they don't induce an allergic reaction, but they can really damage your eyes. So now they're aware, oh, we didn't know this before. So again, and there's no definition for the word hypoallergenic. There's no definition for medical grade, no definitions or standards for any of these.
Or
things.
clean.
Or clean or natural. So people can say for sensitive eyes, and it could be one of the most damaging products you use because there's no guideline or regulation for this. So panel, if you have somebody who's, what would be safer for someone with dry eyes? Using false eyelashes, eyelash growth serums, or maybe mascara designed and advertised as safe for sensitive eyes.
I'll start with that one. So I live in Houston, Texas. Women in South typically wear much more makeup. Houston is a very international city, so I have female patients in my chair every single day that wear lash extensions several years at a time and wear falsies on a regular basis, and also tight line and waterline. This is drawing eyeliners along the lid margin. So for someone who's already suffering from dry eye disease, none of those options are healthy for them. So the problem with the lash extension or falsies, threefold. Number one, it changes the natural length of your eyelash, so it redirects the airflow. It increases your tear evaporation. Number one. Number two, it's so much heavier than what they're supposed to be. So these patients do little flutter blinks. They never do full blink. When you don't blink fully, the natural tear and oil are not being pumped out into your surface, and you're not spreading them across your ocular surface. So that's problem number two. Number three, especially those with lash extensions, every 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, they go in for refill, and the glue that they use have a lot of preservatives, and these women don't clean them well because every time they go for refill in Houston, it's $50 per visit. So it starts accumulating a lot of debris and the buildup and the bugs. And so lash extension falsies along the same line, definitely out. And lash serum is very common. There are more than a dozen over-the-counter products that women can just wear. The problem is all of them have a derivative of prostaglandin. And these companies are very tricky. They use different chemical names. So if you look for prostaglandin analog, you don't see it, but it has half a dozen other different names. So these derivatives, chemicals, damages meibomian gland cells directly, which exacerbate the dry symptoms. So of the three choices, I would say a clean ingredient, eye-safe mascara are much better for these patients.
I'd like to add to this, Dr. Sullivan. Great question, Dr. Shenli. Great explanation. So it's kind of a trick question, actually, because Dr. Shenli mentioned that we are born with eyelashes at a certain length. So basically, we are born with eyelashes that are a third of the length of our eye. Interesting point, because when you use extensions or eyelash growth serum, the length of your lashes are greatly augmented. So again, that increases the wind flow, it increases the debris that goes into your eyes. they're generally not good. Also, the chemicals are not good. Mascara, on the other hand, doesn't lengthen your lashes as much, but the trick there is that mascaras, many of the mainstream mascaras on the market, claim to be safe for sensitive eyes, and that does not guarantee that they are safe. So basically, if you have to choose between the three of them, we would recommend that you select a mascara that is safe or formulated specifically for sensitive or dry eyes. But it's a trick question because most of those three products can be pretty nasty to those with sensitive and dry eyes.
Yeah, so a comment on Kathy for sharing that story. Thank you, of course. As dry eye specialists in clinic, I wish this was an uncommon or unusual story. It's something we hear on a daily basis. And one of the first things we do in clinical practice is look for offending agents. So to make the point of how much these prostaglandins, growth serums, false eyelashes can play a role, one of the first things we do before initiating any type of treatment is basically a washout. Let's stop what you're doing with some of these offending agents. And simply by taking that step, a lot of these people will move to an improved symptomatic level. It may not cure their dry eyes, there is no cure, but symptomatically they improve simply by removing what they've been doing that they weren't even aware was contributing to the issue.
Okay, what are sensitive eyes, and how do they impact the use of eye makeup?
Sensitive eyes, my clinic, when people come in, so 40% of my clinic time is dedicated to treating patients who suffer from various dry and ocular surface disease. So we gave them a patient questionnaire for them to report their symptoms. So sensitive eyes in general could be defined as your eyes bothering you, meaning you can't wear a contact lens because your eyes get dry, or you can't wear makeup because your eyes water, or you can't stare at the computer for more than 30 minutes, an hour at a time because your eyes burn, they water, they get tired.
Yeah, a quick point about watering eyes. It's a confusing symptom. A common symptom of dry eyes is your eyes tear. And it's in response to toxins going in your eyes being irritated. So sometimes people come to our office and say, hey, my eyes are tearing. We say, well, we've looked, you have dry eyes. And it's a little bit confusing. So recognize that that is a very common symptom of dry eye.
And also, sometimes you don't recognize that that you have dry eye until it becomes really severe. You just know, well, gee, my eyes are tired. I've got to put this book down, or I've got to stop staring at the computer, or you don't realize that it's because they are dry. So that's a term that is not automatically in our vocabulary and described.
And oftentimes that becomes the patient's new norm. They don't remember what it felt like to not have dry eyes because it's gradually developed over time. And so that's tough to explain to them as well, right?
Yeah.
And so, Amy, I think you have experience too. A number of people have written to you about having really severe sensitive eyes, whether it be cancer or severe dry eye disease or others, but they write to you about the cosmetics they use and how certain cosmetics, they can never use them, but then there are others that they can use. Could you comment in general about what these people say?
Well, it's very interesting because I receive emails from people around the world saying how, for example, there is one woman who is a makeup artist for 12 years, and she had to stop using cosmetics because they would burn her eyes, and she would have a severe reaction to anything she put on or around her lids, and she actually had to stop being a makeup artist. So she suffered regularly because she couldn't be a professional makeup artist because she couldn't actually use cosmetics. There's another woman that wrote to me and said she had such due to stress, she lost all of her eyelashes, and she would not leave her house or go to work because she didn't want people to see that she didn't have eyelashes. So she tried to wear eye makeup, but it burned her lids severely, and she didn't want to leave the house either because she had red, swollen, watering eyes that were burning, and she was suffering extensively. So she didn't have eyelashes, she couldn't wear eye makeup, she didn't want to socialize, she couldn't go to work, and she was just absolutely miserable. And I receive emails that are tomes sometime from women who suffer greatly from the creams that they use, the colors that they use, and they say, why is this and why has my eye doctor not told me that the products that I use can actually be causing or contributing to my suffering? And what can I do? Is there any hope? Can I use cosmetics again?
And a real problem too is we've done global reports, and I'll use as an example one in Europe where we had key people from most of the European countries talk about the challenges in being an eye care practitioner. In some of these countries, they just don't have enough, or they only have about 5 or 6 minutes to spend with the patient, and they may not be able to see them again for a couple of years. They don't have time to go through all this. They don't have time to think about it or to discuss it. But they're not even aware of it. But it could be contributing to the disease of their patient. So how do we increase awareness, etc.? The American Academy of Ophthalmology recommends cleaning eyelids with shampoo. Does the panel think this treatment is appropriate for people with dry eyes?
Unfortunately, that's a very dated recommendation. Shampoo just has way too much chemicals in it. So when you use that to wash your eyelid margin with eyelashes, it strips the good oil that we need. So I think the Academy definitely needs to update that recommendation. So this is where a lot more education, not just directly to consumers, we also need much more education for eye care practitioners. But on the bigger picture is we need the government to step in to give us much tighter regulations and protocols and research funding so that there is a standardized consensus of what eye doctors could do. Because with Dr. Swatz and I, this is part of our specialties. We take care of these patients every single day. But a lot of these patients, had they been given more accurate information 10 years earlier, 5 years earlier, they would not have become a dry eye disease patient.
Dr. Shenli, I'd like to actually add to that. It's not just shampoo that people are recommending to clean lids, because there are a lot of lid scrubs out there and face washes that are actually very toxic to the lids and the ocular surface.
Okay, I actually, in my purse, I grabbed it from my hotel room. So at my hotel room, they have your usual shampoo, conditioner, lotion, and there's actually eyelid wipe. It's in my purse. I flipped it. On the back, lists ingredients. So remember earlier, the 10 most common toxic ingredients that Dr. Sullivan reviewed? Paraben. So on the ingredient list, 4 ingredients, actual parabens. So these products are everywhere. So think when you walk into a grocery store, a pharmacy in the US, because there's no regulation, 95% of what consumers could buy, and some of these are brands that we've been taught to trust, is packed with chemicals that people use on a daily basis that are creating issues, creating ocular surface and dry symptoms.
And also the marketing is very misleading as well. And for example, as it was explained earlier, dermatologists may recommend something, say for sensitive skin, and it can be very aggressive on the eye health. But
as what I would like to say as a savvy consumer in most areas of my life, I guess I've been naive in this area because I just assumed there was some kind of regulation out there, and if it was on a drugstore shelf, it must have gone through some process, and I naturally shy away from things that do hurt my eyes physically or make them burn. But when they don't, I had made the assumption that they were okay.
Amy, could you comment on the difference between the European Union and the United States and the number of banned chemical ingredients in eye cosmetics?
What's absolutely fascinating is the world really thinks that the FDA is very aggressive in terms of regulations. It may be in many areas, but in terms of cosmetics, what is, shall we say, eye-opening is the fact that in the United States, there are only 11 chemicals banned for the formulation of cosmetics. In the European Union, there are more than 1,300 chemicals banned for the formulation of cosmetics. But what's even more eye-popping these are not addressing eye safety. So in terms of regulations, what's up with the FDA? So there is a lot more research and regulations necessary to really promote the need for eye safety.
What's also fascinating is that one of those 11 banned chemicals is mercury, but it is allowed in eye makeup. Nowhere else, but it is allowed in eye makeup at certain levels. And mercury is extraordinarily toxic, and it can also affect your vision, cause low vision, and for little children go blind. But because of the rules and regulations concerning ingredients, it may not be listed on the bottle that you have as a preservative. So what do we do about that? And then you have makeup, for example, for children. There was one a couple of years ago. It was out there and made a lot of headlines because it contained asbestos. It was a new girl's for makeup kit. This stuff that can kill you. And again, no regulations, no safety requirements on these materials. It's difficult, but it's what we have, and how do we educate them people accordingly? So, Brigitte, does the Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act of 2022 protect patients with dry eye?
So I don't know whose offices you guys work for, but I'd like to point out, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, so prior to the 2022 Cosmetic Act, the last one was in 1938. Consumer and Cosmetic Act that governs what goes into our over-the-counter skincare and eye product. So there is an updated Cosmetic Act in 2022. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of change. So we definitely need both much better regulation and more research funding toward much better controlled studies to where there's a standardized things that the doctors follow, that the practitioners follow. But more importantly, these companies that are pumping out these products, they don't want the laws to change, but they must. So we need our government, our FDA's help to make that happen, because we can only educate one patient at a time. But this change needs to happen on a much bigger scale. So to answer your question directly, not much change.
Cosmetics are used not only by females but also by men. For Brigitte and Shane, do you ask your patients about what they use near their eyes, or how do you teach them what to put near them or not put near them?
I'll say in my first 16, 17 years of practice, no. I never asked men or women what they wore around their eyes because I wasn't aware of the impact. Now it is one of the first things that I do, but sadly I would say 95% of eye doctors out there do not. They're not aware of some of this. And this, again, public awareness is important. Awareness for physicians actually treating this is as important.
So today we do, but up until 2016. So for Shane and I, this is a learning journey for us as well. So we have been, because we both have a very active dry clinics, but for the first, so my business is 24 years old. So probably first 15 years of my professional career, I didn't know either. I've been treating dry eyes for the last 20 years, but we didn't start actively asking patients what are they putting on their face and eyes and what they're using to take them off at the end of the day. So now we do.
And that's so much even more important. It's important for everyone, but very important for dry eye patients. And Sjogren's patients are among those who want to wear eye makeup, who want to put lotion on their skin, but we all need to really educate about what's okay and what's not okay to be doing.
So one thing, I take care of a lot of patients with autoimmune conditions. So for all of these patients, I tell them that you will be a lifetime dry eye symptoms patient, but we're going to keep you from becoming the lifetime dry eye disease patient. Managed symptoms meaning patients like Kathy can do whatever they want to do. Take a walk on the beach, be all of their grandparents, grandchildren, be able to read a book and be able to do arts and crafts that they want to do. So patients who suffer from dry eye disease are not able to live the life the way they want to. So what we do every day is we give that freedom back to the patient. But again, one patient at a time. We need the government's help to do mass education to eye care practitioners, but more importantly, tell the industry to change their product and also general public education.
I'd like to add the fact that you mentioned going out with grandparents. Actually, dry eye disease is not something that is only impacting older generations. This is actually an omnipresent disease, and this is another reason why TFOS did the recent report on how ocular surface disease is a lifestyle epidemic. There are children, say, as young as 7 years old that have meibomian gland dysfunction. There are young children with dry eye disease. It likely won't be cured anytime soon. So this is an omnipresent disease impacting millions and millions of people around the world. And again, it is costing the U.S. economy more than $60 billion. That is a massive loss to the U.S. economy. Imagine how much of a loss it is to the world economy and how much of that loss can be recouped or how much can be generated in a positive sense if dry eye disease was cured or better managed. And if cosmetics were better regulated, and if we knew what was actually in the bottle, in the box, and what we're buying and putting on our faces, on our children's faces. People don't know because it's all hidden.
I'd like to add something to it. I don't know if any of you were here in the 2019 presentation. So that was my first congressional briefing educating about. So I had 10 minutes, and my topic in 2019 was growing epidemic dry eye disease in children. At the time, the youngest dry eye disease, not symptoms, dry eye disease patient I treated was 9 years old. So I presented his meibomian glands image, of course, with the child's and the parents' permission to share his story. So at the time in 2019, there was only one published clinical study on 99 American children, but it was more of a symptoms, not even full data. At that time, the most quoted, well-done study is out of South Korea, over 1,000 school-age children over a year-length period of time. So a lot of data that you see quoted came from that study. So today, I meant to do it, but I had, Dr. Sullivan, do you know how many more pediatric population-focused dry eye disease research has been done since 2019?
I don't know the numbers of studies. I know CM Lasreg in Algeria does a lot of research on this, particularly the meibomian gland, but I don't have the numbers. But I would like to note there was a study that was done in South Korea, I think, where
that was 2016, 2017.
Okay, so these particular children, there were about 15 or 20 of them where they were losing, having meibomian gland atrophy, they were losing them. So they treated them for 13 days with the same treatment. There was no control group here, just treatment. And at the end of 30 days, they all came back and they were almost all returned. The meibomian glands were almost all better. Why? Because they took away their cell phones. Because when they screen, and constantly look at screens, they don't blink. They keep their eyes open, and it promotes dry eye disease. But that's just sort of setting them up for when they start to take pictures of selfies with their cosmetics on, which just add to the problem. So we'll jump on from screens for a moment.
So we definitely need much more research funding toward meibomian gland dysfunction. Meibomian glands are these glands inside your lower and upper lids. The purpose of these glands is to produce the natural oil or meibum layer of your tear film. And that oil layer helps stabilize your tear film, prevents your own tear from evaporating. So meibomian glands dysfunction is the major contributing factor to dry eye disease patients that we see.
And cosmetics can clog your meibomian gland, but they can also kill them.
The harmful ingredients kill the meibomian gland cells. So we need much, much more research on both adult, but especially pediatric population.
And those of us with Sjogren's, when we have the dry eye disease, most of us also have the meibomian gland dysfunction. They often come together.
So, yeah, there have been several reports doing that. We published research too on Sherwin's patient, be it primary, secondary, the old terminology. Yeah, they all had meibomian gland dysfunction as well as lacrimal. If you're going to do it, you might as well do the mixed version, right? You get a really good dry eye. How do we educate eye care providers about the risks associated with cosmetic products, such as tea tree oil, and procedures such as eyelash extensions for their dry eye patients?
Education, education, education.
Okay? What are the measures, ideal measures that Congress can take to help improve the safety of eye cosmetic products and procedures for people, and especially with those with dry eye?
I don't know, but please do something.
Amy, why don't you take this one?
Well, it goes back to the MOCRA, the new act that came out in December of 2022. So one of the aspects of that regulation says that companies must list all ingredients on their packaging. It's a start, but the thing is, if people don't realize what these ingredients are doing to the eye health because there hasn't been sufficient research and proof of what these chemicals are doing and an increased list of banned chemicals based on eye safety, people don't know. So you can have ingredients listed on a box, but it's alphabet soup. So it's really, really important, yes, that there are more regulations, but there needs to be more research to prove why many of the ingredients that are included in the cosmetics in this country specifically are not eye safe and can cause and exacerbate dry eye disease and many other eye diseases actually, but need to step it up.
Even with a list of things that are bad for you, it's hard when you, I mean, after I saw your presentation, I started looking at a lot of my products and my moisturizers and other things, and it's hard to translate sometimes. I think they kind of intentionally hide what they are by the way they cite them.
Fragrance, for example, which is in a lot of cosmetics, that fragrance actually can mean 50 to 200 different chemicals. It's a cocktail of ingredients that are used to make the fragrance. So the next time you look at your face wash or your cream or your eyeliner, check out and see if there's fragrance. So phthalate, for example, won't always be listed, but fragrance, you don't know what is in there. So in the US, they hide a lot, and it's maybe that's one of the reasons why the most popular reason for going to the eye doctor is dry eye. Is that? Yeah.
So just because we're going to wrap it up here, we need far more research to understand how these ingredients or procedures promote ocular surface disease and dry eye disease. And given that with all these ingredients we've talked about that should be avoided, the question that was raised here was what's left that would be considered safe? There are things that are safe, but TFOS never endorses any product. So if you would like to know what is safe, ask the panelists, they will tell you. Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions?
So last minute, we have, I think, a representative or two from the Sjogren's Syndrome Foundation sitting in the audience. What do you think of all this for cosmetics and Sjogren's syndrome?
Well, as the CEO of the foundation and someone that wears makeup, I'm trying to think through, should I be wearing makeup only when I give public presentations? What am I going to do here? Luckily, I do use mascara only. I don't like those other tactics, but it is interesting, and it is for women who do enjoy wearing makeup, and is part of their lifestyle and their personal presentation. It's an interesting topic.
Most will wear it even though it hurts.
Yeah, so luckily it does not hurt me, but I'm going to be like, well, I go the weekends without makeup and I feel this, my eyes feel the same. So, but it is seeing that list of ingredients is a little, I've not even thought. My personal lid scrub has tea tree oil in it, so that's how. And it's like, okay.
So, but thank you very much for coming, and thanks, Gail, for organizing.
close out, I do want to thank everybody for coming. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for the panel, and thank you to our partners at TFOS for helping put this together.